Welcome to Revenue Mavericks, the podcast where today's most iconic GTM leaders break down the mindset and the moves that defy the status quo. In each episode, operators share the playbooks they've used to change the game and deliver outsized growth. And now, here's the host of Revenue Mavericks, CEO and co-founder of Carrot, Justin Schreiber.
Well, hello, everyone. It's extremely exciting to be here with you today. I am joined by my friend, Esther Friend, who is the Vice President of Revenue Operations at Udemy. We're going to have a great conversation today. Esther has an amazing career previously at Five9. She's been at some great companies and really brought the spirit of transformation to the RevOps role. On the show, we always like to throw out three questions, and I never know where this is going to go. I have not talked to Esther in advance about her answers to these questions, so we're just going to jump on this thing and start to roll with it. Esther, though, I did want to, before we get into the questions, put a picture up because I found that this was very intriguing and something that I suspect.
Oh gosh.
All right, so get ready.
I can't wait to see what it says.
In advance either. So Esther, who is this person here?
Oh, that would be me.
What is going on? What is going on with this picture?
I thought that was a hilarious picture. So you could see on the left, the person with like her mouth like wide open, like shouting. So this was at the Chicago Marathon, and I was racing on behalf of the Reeve Family Foundation, which is supporting research for helping those with paralysis, which my dad got paralyzed a few years ago. So this is something that I've been supporting, and the team is over there on the left. The reason I'm like looking like that is they just gave me my goods. They were at like mile 13 or something and had some of my gels. So I grabbed my gels and I kept going. I was trying to catch up to one of my teammates there. So you could see I was focused, but that's my Team Reeve shirt. And those are the streets of Chicago. So,
all right. Yeah. Now this was not a one-off because you just finished the New York Marathon as well, I understand.
Correct. Yeah. I just finished my 7th marathon. So yeah, I love, I'm an achiever personality. So I love giving myself hard challenges.
Okay. Well, we need to build a bridge here because I find that people in the sales business are competitors at heart. And clearly that's the case with you. Can you draw any correlations between your experience as a marathon runner and what you bring to the table from a RevOps professional?
Yeah, I would say I'm kind of a research nerd. And so I'm always looking for like, what are those, what's kind of the playbook for success? And so for marathoning, it's a significant distance. I think it's higher risk than some of the shorter distance where lots of things can go wrong. So I would say I have lots of runners that I follow, coaches that I follow. I have my own coaching group. And I tend to follow a lot of kind of what does the research show is successful, which I think in revenue operations, that's oftentimes what we're doing for the sales or the go-to-market team is looking at, okay, we ran this play. This is the impact that we had. These are the personas we targeted. Let's go replicate this and scale it. So I'm all about figuring out what works and how to replicate it. And so I'd say in my running, that definitely is something that I apply there, but it's also very important to my career in RevOps as well.
Yeah. Consistently, the feedback I get from people that are excellent in their profession, they are students of the game. They're not figuring it out themselves. They're amazing at being able to aggregate and synthesize best practices from other people and then apply those in their own discipline. Whether you're running a marathon or trying to drive another 10 percentage points in revenue, I think that's very applicable.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So we're right into it. And the first question that I wanted to throw out to you, what is a pre-work experience that you had or a non-work related experience that you had that's actually shaped you as a professional?
Yeah, so this is a really easy one for me because there was one experience that I think really changed how I view the world and how I operate in the world. And that was when I was in college. I was a Spanish major. Okay. And I was attending a small liberal arts school, and I decided to study abroad. And I went to Sevilla, Spain, and I lived there for a year and a half. And I went to university there with all like Spanish students. I lived with a Spanish family. I lived the Southern Spain lifestyle, which was completely different from my lifestyle coming up as a Hoosier from Indianapolis. And so at first, when you're in that environment, you think, this is broken. Like, what the hell is going on here? That's not how it works. And that's kind of your first reaction is like, well, why are we taking a nap every day? Ugh. There's all these things that you're kind of going, what? This is so different. And I think over time, what I realized is like, wow, okay, there are different ways to live. Like there's not one way. There are many ways that you can live, and all of them are successful. So there's not like one way to do things, which I think just in terms of going into my career made me more comfortable with questioning things like, why are we doing it this way? Is there a reason we're doing it this way? Is this the most effective way to do it? Are there other ways to do it? Back to your point, like let's look at what are some best practices. And so I think it just made me much more open to new ideas and much more adaptable and much more of a questioning person, which I think served me really well, especially starting out like the beginning of my career. I think it kind of gave me an edge. I would say it matured me faster than maybe some of my peers. And then the other thing that it also did for me is when I was a young, like new worker in the workforce, I had this opportunity that was leading a project in Mexico City. And that experience, having lived in Spain for like a year and a half, made me someone that was qualified for that from the standpoint of being able to plug me in down there. With our company had just been bought by a big, Fortune 500 company called Sendent Corporation, and they were looking to go set up an in-house outsource. And I was great at sales. I was a very successful sales leader, but I also had this advantage of like having lived in other cultures and having been a fluent Spanish speaker. So I had kind of a big break. I think I was like 22 and asked to go lead this pretty impactful project. And it went like really well, which then led to like all kinds of other opportunities where I was actually able to go live in Ireland for 3 years with my company. And then I went to Singapore for 3 years and became head of operations there. So it really gave me opportunities for career growth that I wouldn't have had.
I love it.
Partly because of the language experience and then partly because I think I was thinking a little differently.
Yeah. I can relate to that experience that you're sharing. I've had the opportunity to live abroad for a few years. It's an eye-opening experience when you arrive and realize that there is more than one way to buy your food and interact with people and what time bedtime is. I think my biggest aha moment, I was at Siebel at the time, and they sent me on a European training tour. So I had to lead training for sales organizations in 7 different countries. And this was compressed into like 3 weeks. And so I'd land, I'd give the training, I'd fly to the next country. And I had the opportunity to compare side by side the approaches that all these countries took using basically the same materials and information, but seeing how the reactions were different. So I remember I arrived in Denmark and the training was supposed to start at 8 in the morning. Everyone was lined up outside of the door at 7:30. And they asked if they could work through lunch so that they could go home early. And I think most of them rode bicycles to work.
Oh, yeah.
So that's one extreme. And then from there on to Madrid, where training also started at 8. No one warned me. No one showed up until 9:30. We had a 2-hour lunch break, but we went well into the night working on the project. And what I remember, I still remember the people that I worked with in Madrid, and literally in a day, we bonded because we spent the time together and just had these interactions both in the office and outside of the office. And like you, I realized more than one way to approach something. And business is about rolling with it and bringing some core ideas to the table, but then having the flexibility to bring in, these other inputs that are surrounding you.
Yeah, for sure. You had the 2 extremes right there. I remember in Spain, they were like, well, if we were German, we would be waiting for the light to change. They'd say very cuadrados. They're very square.
I think that one of the challenges of a business leader, especially as you've been in business longer and longer, is breaking out of the mindset, because we have to have a framework or a paradigm that we use to view the world. And as you are successful and have success, that kind of reinforces this idea that, oh, I have the right way. So doing things that break you out of that mindset, whether it's living in another country, hiring people that come from a completely different background and are going to show up with a different point of view, I find there's different forcing functions that allow you to kind of take a step back and see from a different angle.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So question number 2, inflection points. What was an inflection point in your career, and how did that impact where you are today?
Yeah, so one of the inflection points was that I had been working for companies of various sizes. So when I started out my career, I actually started out with a company that was very large and had been purchased by, a Fortune 500 company, Sendent, that had all these companies. But then later on in my career, I started working for startups who had quirky, founders. You had to be very scrappy, do all these things. And I had kind of come off the back of one of those experiences where I was the SVP of client success and owned like the whole client journey, implementing them, growing them, post-sales, et cetera. And I was looking for kind of where I was going to go next. And I had a networking breakfast with the COO of Angie's List. And I was thinking we were just having this conversation. And the conversation went great. We hit it off. And then at the end, he was like, I really need someone like you. And I was like, oh. And I wasn't thinking this was like a job conversation. I thought we were just like meeting each other. Yeah. And he starts telling me why. And I was kind of like, he had like a different perspective of me than I had of me. And he's like, well, you're an expert on CRM. You're an expert on this. Da, 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 da. And so he's like, I really think that you should come and work for us. And they were going through a transformation. And he was having a lot of challenges with, he knew what needed to be done, but he was not technical in the least. And was like, I can't get these groups to work together. And I know what I need to do for sales, but the engineering team doesn't understand me. And he's like, the tail's wagging the dog. I need help here. And he saw me as like a highly technical business person. And it was kind of like a new way to see myself. I didn't realize that I was, but I kind of was, because I've been in these environments where I was a product owner. I was working directly with the engineers. I actually had patents that we created for one of the companies, Cha-Cha, where we just built all these flows together, like me with the engineering team. I have 2 approved patents. So kind of fun facts. But anyway, so he saw this different like talent that I had and asked me to come on board there. So originally I joined as the VP of Sales Platform Transformation. And it was really focusing on making their Salesforce platform more effective, tying together the Angie website with the platform to improve the lead process. And kind of over time, it grew into owning the sales operations function as well as the PMO. And then in terms of being an inflection point, so that went very well, that initiative that I originally came on to lead, and then also taking over that responsibility. But then we decided to merge with Home Advisor. And so I became part of the integration team that ultimately created Angie Home Services. So, I was with Angie's List. We were kind of a Salesforce shop and using SaaS. Home Advisor had built all of their own stuff. So I ended up kind of being the product owner and having engineering teams that were working on the systems that they had built, but taking on an expanded role there. So I would say it was a really great experience for me to really kind of to some really difficult problems to solve and come out the other side where like it was pretty unconventional what I was proposing, and being able to get the buy-in from diverse functions, including the engineering team that wasn't kind of understanding where the CEO was trying to go, and being able to map it together and have a really good outcome in terms of dramatic improvements on the efficiency of our sales team and other functions. So it was definitely a really fun experience for me.
So many people that I've talked to, those inflection points in their career are seemingly serendipitous. They're unexpected. And I think one of the reasons for that is it's in the moments where we just show up and we are who we are and we're natural. That our passions come through, the things that really get us excited come through, and people recognize that. Maybe more so than if we're trying a little too hard to project a certain persona, or we really want that job, so we're kind of working a little too hard at it. So I love that example.
Yeah.
I think about one of my former bosses, one of my favorite bosses, Shannon Brayton, who was the chief marketing officer at LinkedIn. And she had an amazing career. Obviously, the results speak for themselves in terms of LinkedIn from a brand. But what was interesting is that Shannon joined LinkedIn because at the time, the CEO, Jeff Weiner, was looking for somebody to head up comms. And one of his friends put him in touch with Shannon and said, Shannon's a great comms person. She'll just give you some advice, what to look for, kind of how you build the right profile. So they had, I think, breakfast or lunch together. And Shannon showed up like you, just thinking they were going to have a conversation. And at the end of the conversation, Jeff said, you need to come and work at LinkedIn. And Shannon at the time was having a great career. She was at eBay at the time. She said, Jeff, I'm not really interested. I didn't come to get a job. Well, Jeff was persuasive. She joined LinkedIn, and the rest is history.
Oh
So
gosh.
you never know when those moments are going to occur. The other thing that strikes me about your story, though, is you just showed up at a lunch. I think
Yeah.
we just got to show up. We got to talk to people and then
Yeah.
let the story unfold.
So true. Yeah. I'm always encouraging kind of people I'm mentoring, like the importance of just networking for networking's sake. Like you're not necessarily getting anything back like right away, but you've got to have like this great network. And part of it is like keeping yourself up to speed with what's going on and making sure you have access to the best ideas. But personally, I find it very invigorating. I would say I'm an ambivert, but I do love to have those conversations and help other people too. So
Yeah, great.
yeah.
Okay, question number 3. I have a visual aid for this.
Oh no.
This is our secret sauce.
Oh.
Let's get this in a focus here. You can't see it because I got the blur background on. This is our secret sauce section of the program where you get to share your secret sauce for what has allowed you to achieve excellence in the discipline of revenue operations.
Yeah, so I'd say, I was having a conversation with somebody that I kind of touched base with throughout my career that's sort of a creative. And he was telling me at one point, he said, Esther, you have to figure out what is your superpower. And I was like, ooh, I love that idea of a superpower, right? So secret sauce, superpower. But I think one thing that has really helped me be successful is I did start off kind of on the sales side and even like in the trenches doing outbound, inbound, telemarketing, like those really hard jobs, like our, SDR, XDR, whatever you want to call them. So I've been on the front lines of that process. And then I've also been in the trenches of like trying to save customers as a head of customer success. So I think that has given me a lot of empathy for kind of the roles of our sales folks, sales leaders, go-to-market people, and being able to put myself in their shoes. So I'd say a lot of my approach is kind of around design thinking and getting very direct feedback from people that are involved in the process for both thinking about how do we improve process, how do we improve systems, how do we capture those winning recipes and scale those. So a lot of my work is around like the day in the life. And how do we then look at, okay, how do we make it easier for them? So I have leveraged a lot of tools. I think you're familiar with people.ai, other tools that can help kind of take what some people might have been doing manually and look at how do we automate this and do it at scale. So I'm always thinking about scale, but I love to get those firsthand perspectives of the end users. And that was something like at my Angie's List experience that was pretty transformational, as they said, I've got like these contractors I'm trying to sell, and they just want to go to like this radius. And I would love to just like draw a circle, and that's what I could sell them. Mm-hmm. The reality was they had to go type in, find out what the zip codes were, and type them all into the system to create a bespoke contract. You can imagine how long that would take. And they say, oh, no, not that one. I don't want to cross the bridge, this and that. So I said to my team, like, hey, let's talk to Salesforce. Let's see how we could achieve this, where you could draw a circle on a map, and that would then configure the quote with all those zip codes. And they had just purchased like Mapbox or, one of those tools. I forget which exact tool it was. But essentially we built it into their UI for Salesforce. So you could draw the circle and boom, you had the zip codes there, and it saved like, I can't even say how much time per contract for them to be able to just do that. And it was delightful to the people we were selling to, the contractors, because they didn't have to like wade through a list of zip codes to figure out, is this what I actually want to pay for? So things like that, I think, are just breakthroughs, and I'm always listening and kind of open to hearing those ideas, and I don't shoot them down. I think, well, maybe we can do part of that, or that's the big vision that we're going to get there one day. Let's move towards that big vision. So kind of breaking it down, piloting, seeing incremental success, and then kind of building on that.
I was having dinner a few nights ago in Chicago with an operating partner at a private equity firm. And I said, this is great. I get to talk to somebody. It's their job to basically turn around sales organizations. So I said, what is your playbook when you get dropped into one of these portcos to get everything turned around? I loved her answer. She said, number one, you got to find out what the goal is. And so I'll sit down with the CTO or the CEO. I'll sit down with the other partners. She said, the second thing, though, is really important. You need to go to the people on the front line and you need to say, here's where we're trying to get to. Why aren't we there right now? What are the issues? And what thoughts do you have on how we could get there? And the point was, there's so much pressure as an executive to come in and feel like you have to know the answer and how you have to get to that big idea quickly, that sometimes we get in our own way. People know the answer. And if
Oh,
we're
yeah.
simply willing to go to those people, she said so many times, I'll have this idea in my head about how to get there. And as soon as I talk to the first person, they'll shoot it down and say, oh, we already tried that. It doesn't work. You should do this instead. And she said, in the long run, I save myself so much time because I just
Yeah.
ask these questions and I'm just the filter pulling in all this information.
Well, and then you have the buy-in too, because it comes from
Yeah.
them and they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. I can't believe we actually finally got this thing that everybody told me we couldn't do. So, yeah. Well, and that was when I remember talking to Salesforce because we were trying to move over to CPQ at that time. And I was like, you will clinch the deal if you can show us how you can do this. And so they went away and they were like, okay, how can we do this? And it was people were just like blown away when we did the demo. They were like, oh my God, this is like, hallelujah. So you can really delight the people, which is awesome.
All right. Great secret sauce.
Yeah.
Great conversation. We got 3 new insights on Esther, and I think all of those are going to make us all better operators and professionals. So Esther, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about yourself, your career, and what makes your approach unique.
Thank you so much, Justin. It was fun talking with you.
All right. We'll talk again.
See ya.
You've been listening to Revenue Mavericks, sponsored by Tarot. Tarot is the AI-native revenue operating system that Revenue Mavericks count on to increase forecasting precision and sales productivity. Follow Tarot on LinkedIn for new episode drops and updates. Thanks for listening.